Hello and welcome to the Garden of the Black Roses. This is the continuation of Magic of Moonlight. I am pretty sure this chapter doesn't have any sexual content. However, if there is, I will be separating it out like I did with the previous chapter. So let's get on with it. Chapter 2. Attraction. Caius frowned at his friend. For the 8th time that week, Sebastian had gone out of his way to sneak a cuddle from Ember while at school. Ever since his 16th, Sebastian's behavior towards Ember had become more open and affectionate. She-wolves who spoke out against Ember near him were openly yelled at, and it was clear to the 3 future alphas as well as Ember's friends that Sebastian was acting like a wolf trying to woo his mate. Ember had expressed on more than one occasion to him that this behavior from Sebastian was causing her trouble. Cuddles at the pack house were fine, but cuddles at school incited bullies. He sighed and watched as Ember awkwardly didn't react to the hug and waited for Sebastian to let go. She had tried to explain to him why he shouldn't do this, but her gentle approach wasn't working. He had to be a bit more blunt with his friend. "I don't get it," Sebastian said, watching Ember walk away. She hadn't even acknowledged his hug like she did at home. "I usually get more of a response from her when I do that." "Probably pissed at you," Caius replied with a huff. "She has tried to ask you not to do that at school. You ignored her." "I still don't even understand that." Sebastian was aware his tone sounded whiny and childish, but he didn't care. He knew what he wanted. "Why okay at your pack house or mine, but not at school?" He caught Caius rolling his eyes at him. "Just tell me straight." Caius suddenly lifted his head up, very alert. His eyes darkened angrily. "Come with me," he growled, anger rolling off him in waves. "You'll see why." The pair ran in the direction Ember had gone. Screams and angry voices filled the air as they approached. Sebastian's heart began to sink. The smell of Ember's blood was also in the air, thick and heavy. "You pathetic excuse for a she-wolf!" A she-wolf from his class screamed and picked Ember up by her hair. She dragged her across the ground before heaving her at the side of the building. "We told you to stay away from Sebastian, and what do? You go near him so he hugs you." Ember barely reacted. She was used to these bullies. Reacting incited them to hurt more. They usually gave up hurting her because it wasn't fun to hit someone who didn't respond. They didn't care if it was Sebastian's choice to hug her. All they saw were him hugging her. All she would do when this happened was mind like Caius and bear with it until either they stopped or he came. "You're such a whore." Another she-wolf kicked her hard in the side. When Ember made no sound, she stomped hard onto her wrist. She smiled at the pained cry she elicited from her. "Everyone knows being a mate to you brings nothing. You have no rank and provide no power for your mate. Stop toying with Sebastian so you can have power." A black wolf with a small patch between his eyes roared loudly. He swiped his paw through the she-wolves, throwing the she-wolves to the ground. The glowing golden eyes told them exactly who he was. He dropped his furry body onto Ember protectively, his size hiding her from view completely. Nearby, another black wolf, with green eyes, howled. The power the pair exuded forced the she-wolves to their knees. It wasn't long before the principal and 2 other male wolves came running towards them from the school building. "Sebastian! Caius!" the principal called sternly. "You know it's against the school rules to shift outside of training class." The golden-eyed wolf growled loudly and angrily before carefully lifting himself off Ember and settling back down at her side. He nudged her, now unconscious, body with his nose. He finally understood why. She was being bullied for his actions because she was the easier target. He nudged her again, trying to elicit a response to no avail. "Logan, Raven, can you let the principal know I've contacted my parents so they can come and collect Ember?" Caius mind-linked, growling at the she-wolves who tried to get up and leave. Raven turned to the principal to relay the same. He sighed and went over to check Ember. Sebastian growled lightly. "I know you're angry, Sebastian, but you are partially to blame for this." Sebastian gave a small whimper in reply. "I've mind-linked the school nurse to come check her over before Alpha Marcus and Luna Rebecca get here." "All 4 sets of parents are coming," Logan added into the conversation before relaying it verbally to the principal. "Bullying to this degree should not be tolerated. They want to make sure it never happens again." "Where's my patient?" A bubbly she-wolf came running down towards them. She held a black bag bursting at the seams with supplies. Sebastian let out a small whine, drawing her attention to him before nudging Ember again with his nose. "Oh my!" She ran over and gently started to check her over. "My name is Suzu, short for Suzume, or Sparrow in my native tongue," she said to him. She ignored his light growls, used to the behavior of males protecting their mates, and proceeded to wash down a few of Ember's wounds. "Let's see if I can get her more stabilized." Caius kept an eye on the she-wolves, still sitting submissively near him. Occasionally he would growl when one would try to get up. "These she-wolves keep trying to escape," he rumbled angrily, opening the link to the 4 future alphas and their fathers. "Not on my watch." Sebastian let out a powerful growl that sent shivers through everyone present. The shockwave forced the she-wolves to sit with their hands resting behind their backs. No one hurts Ember and gets away with it. A growl grumbled through him again, less powerful this time, before lowering his head to give Ember a lick on the cheek. Caius, Logan, and Raven looked at him curiously. Sebastian's presentation was like a wolf protecting his injured mate. It wasn't a secret amongst the 4 that he had feelings for her, but when he reacted in this way, they often wondered if they were mates. It would all make sense with how drawn he was to her, and how much he doted on her wants and needs. The 3 agreed, however, to help keep Sebastian grounded until they knew for sure on her 16th. "I don't know how he commanded them all to stay put," Caius mind-linked Logan and Raven. "They aren't even all from his pack." "I don't know either," Logan replied, spotting movement from the corner of his eye. A quick glance told him that Ember's 3 best friends were heading towards her. Frowning, he also caught sight of Raven's pensive look. "Something on your mind?" There is a way Sebastian could have done it. He was hesitant to put the thought out there. Only the Werewolf King can command any wolf from any pack. He took a deep breath. It made sense in his head, and the pieces sort of fit. This is based on a guess. The only she-wolf Sebastian has a strong bond with, who isn't family, is Ember. If Ember is Avatar of the Moon... "I see where you're going with this," Caius interrupted, his eyes widening slightly. "When we were younger, Ember used to pretend she had a magical tattoo on her chest. If she really does have one, that would make Sebastian the next generation." Logan's eyes also widened in surprise, or in realization. He could see the pieces fitting together perfectly. The only thing is that all of this is speculation until Ember is 16. Or sooner, if Sebastian has his way. Caius thought to himself. He kept that out of the mind link. He knew his friends well, and he knew his best friend well, and him doting on his sister was opening the door to her seeing him in the same light. Right now, their relationship was innocent, as Ember didn't appear to have the same feelings. He sighed inwardly, not looking forward to the day that Ember makes that decision, if she made a decision before she turned 16. His skin prickled slightly, letting him know his parents were nearby. The Alphas and Lunas all looked equally angry. Alpha Marcus and Luna Rebecca also looked rightfully upset at the situation before them. Feeling comfortable now that they were here, Caius started to make his way over to Sebastian and Ember. "I need Ember transported somewhere she can rest," Suzu said, interrupting all the mind links. She waited until Caius settled himself at Ember's side with his head on his paws. "Preferably at the pack house, while this situation is being dealt with." Sebastian growled lightly when Raven lifted Ember up onto Caius's back. A whimpering sound filled the air. Caius stayed still, afraid of her falling off. Ember gripped his fur and continued to whimper. His attempts to reach her were met with a void, letting him know she still was largely unconscious. Luna Rebecca and Luna Rias ran over to them at the sound of her whimpering and took in her teary, injured state. "Sweetheart," Luna Rias called to Sebastian, "can you bring your jacket to me before you shift back?" He padded over to her with his jacket in his mouth. He watched curiously as she put the jacket over Ember's back. Almost immediately, she stopped whimpering and snuggled into his jacket and Caius's fur. "Let's take her home," Luna Rebecca said, patting the top of Caius's head gently. "Your father and Sebastian will deal with things here." "I'll come and hand over to Dr. Aliyah what I've done so far for Ember," Suzu added, with nods as well from Violet and Rita. All five began to leave. Rita glanced back at Toby with a questioning eyebrow. He headed over to Logan before folding his arms. He wanted to see at least this aspect of the bullying stopped. She nodded and ran to catch up with the other four. "Mum?" Sebastian asked after shifting back and getting dressed again. "How did you know my jacket would calm her?" Rias laughed. Her eyes watched the four alphas talking to the she-wolves. "When you were a toddler, you would want cuddles from Rebecca while she was pregnant with Ember. You always asked to be picked up and cuddled. Once Ember was born, you would stay near her crib. You would know when she was upset and would come and get us even before she started crying." Sebastian's eyes widened in surprise. "You doted on Ember ever since she was born. Rebecca and I think you two are mates. Alpha Marcus and your father, however, think we're just hoping that you two can join the families together." He waited until Rias walked off to talk to the other Lunas before talking to Raven and Logan. "It seems," Sebastian said with a small satisfied purr. "At least on an unconscious level, Ember feels the same way." He caught Raven and Logan's eyes. "I know, I won't initiate. I'll wait until her 16th. Or sooner, if Ember initiates." He watched the alphas lecture the she-wolves. He could feel his fur starting to rise all over his body. "Listen to the alphas!" he roared, scaring everyone present. I can see all the smirking and sneaky smiles. "You will listen, understand, and obey. Understood?" The she-wolves looked like they were trying to resist his words. "Do I make myself clear?" He punctuated each word with a hard glare before ending in a growl. He stalked towards where the Alphas were standing. "Yes, Alpha," they replied, unable to resist the power he commanded. "Good. Faces up and listen." Sebastian folded his arms angrily. "Any smirking or expressions that show you aren't paying full attention, and you won't like what I'll do to you." A sinister smile spread across his face. "Your son," Alpha Marcus mind-linked Alpha Alexis, his tone a mix of awe and concern. "You don't think he's—" He pulled the other two Alphas into the mind link. "How?" Alpha Eraser was blunt as ever. He listened as Alpha Marcus went over the school rules and the werewolf laws as part of the she-wolf lecture. "Remember, the strength of the Werewolf King is determined by his bond to the avatar of the moon." "So are you saying Ember is the avatar of the moon?" Alpha Marcus asked when Alpha Lucas took over, explaining the punishment the she-wolves would be receiving. "Because I've never seen any indication that she is." "Not to discredit your knowledge of your daughter," Alpha Eraser raised an eyebrow almost mockingly, "but you wouldn't know. The moon goddess hides the marks of the avatars. They would present like any other she-wolf to us." Alpha Marcus looked at the others thoughtfully. "Let's shelve this for now. It could be that all of our bloodlines have a single focal point, and Sebastian is one of those rarities that can channel this strength through that. A bit more research is needed. Leave that to my son and I, since our historical library is the largest out of our packs. Thanks to my son." Alpha Eraser gave the other Alphas a nod. "If our families come from a single Alpha, I'll be able to find it." "I found something interesting." Alpha Eraser's voice startled the other three Alphas. "Our families did descend from one Alpha. He was the first Alpha to populate these lands, Alpha Lothlorien. He was the firstborn son of the first Werewolf King. He travelled from the Isle of Werewolves to here to bring together the warring clans of this continent as the moon goddess had requested. His 4 sons became the Alphas of the 4 packs with the school at its heart. So Sebastian could be the most direct descendant of his?" Alpha Alexis asked curiously. "That would mean that Rias's family line joins to mine somewhere in her past." "That's the thing." Alpha Eraser's voice took on a worried tone. "Lothlorien was notorious for his war with witches, and one cursed his family line to only birth 1 child each generation. He was lucky this curse came after his children were born. There is no way that there could be 2 branching paths from his family from then on." "So..." Alpha Marcus's voice sounded confused. "How did I get 2 children? I assume because of the curse this hasn't happened before." "Correct. I've looked into that as well." Alpha Eraser sounded mildly stressed. "The only conclusion I can come up with is divine intervention." "But that loops back to our original thought," Alpha Lucas finally spoke up, uncertain how to process everything. Is Sebastian the next generation? With the curses on our families, Marcus could have only had Ember by divine intervention. If so, that makes it a high likelihood that Ember is the avatar of the moon. This is all assuming that the 2 are mates, Alpha Marcus replied. He wasn't sure how to take his only daughter being someone who wars could be fought over. He didn't want her to be in the center of all of that. All he wanted was for both of his children to live happy and peaceful lives. Speculation isn't going to get us anywhere. "I'll have a chat with my son and get him to limit the displays of power," Alpha Alexis said with a sigh. "It puts both of them at risk if someone comes to the same possible conclusions as we have." A round of agreement was voiced. The last thing we want is either of them to getting hurt because of wolves suspecting they are more than what they are. And that's it for this chapter. Yeah. I don't know what to say now. Anyway, that's it for this one. I hope you're enjoying the story so far. As I'm reading through it out loud, I am finding bits and pieces that I probably will have to change if I publish it. Either I'll probably publish it on one of like Dream or one of those or other book app thingies. But yeah, I will see you in the next video of whatever that might be. And as always, let your imagination run wild. Bye for now.